We have a lot to cover. Manos a la obra. Okay, so in my last video I took a Spanish proficiency test.
Soy tonto. Necesito un descanso.
And so today I want to get into some of the specific resources that I've been using to learn and some realizations that I've made along the way. Also, if you're learning any other language, a lot of the resources I'm sharing today are not specific to Spanish. So if you're stuck and you don't know where to start, hopefully this video will help you out too. So this might seem obvious, especially if you already speak more than one language, but for me, it was almost too obvious that I never really paid attention to it. Let me explain. So when we're babies learning our mother tongue, we're not sitting there thinking about our game plan of how to learn this language that everyone's using around us. We're kind of just existing and absorbing. And so if you think about it, the very first thing that we're exposed to is listening. Everyone around us is talking, and our little tiny brains are just processing that for months and months until we utter our first words. Which brings us to the second skill, speaking. Side note, facial expressions and gestures are also an important part of communication and language. And after a few years, we can string together more and more words to create sentences and talk about abstract ideas. Then we learn the alphabet if it's a language with an alphabet, and we can start to read the written language. People read books to us, we stare at these weird symbols on a page or a screen and eventually make sense out of them. And not only the letters themselves, but what they mean in various combinations. And then we learn how to write them and how what we're writing corresponds with what we're trying to say. So I realized if I want to learn another language, I need to spend time listening, speaking, reading, and writing in that language. When I tell you this is the dumbest aha moment I have ever had, at its bare bones, acquiring a language is about the time you spend with it. Think of how many hours of exposure we have in our native language. Think of how a 3-year-old talks. Where my ball? Cargo vroom. Well, it's 2020, so it's probably like, Mommy, wear mask. Siri, open TikTok. I don't know. But say you spend half of the day sleeping and then half of the day immersed in your family's language. By 3, that is 1.5 years of immersion. Like, okay, maybe our adult brains are a little bit different than a toddler's, but my point is, when language enthusiasts say immersion is key, immersion is key. And even though it would be lovely if we could, it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to live in a country where our target language is spoken. Because fortunately for us, or unfortunately for other reasons, the internet exists. And there are so many free resources at our disposal. But which ones actually help? I do have some resources on this list that I paid for, but I want to knock out the free ones first because they're free. We like free. Numero Uno. Spanish Dict. Spanish Dict. So this website is for Spanish specifically, but it is the best language website I have ever encountered in my days. They have translations, not like Google translations, okay, like idiomatic translations, conjugations. You can literally type any verb into the conjugator and it will give you, I'm getting emotional, it will give you that verb in every tense and mood your heart desires. Not only that, but they also just added free courses. I'm currently trying to get a grasp on the subjunctive, but they have a whole course on it. And I finished it, I took the whole course, and I intend on taking it again. And I also want to take their other courses, even on the subjects that I think I'm already confident in. Because I really like the way they teach and the way that they present information. I feel like it cements well into my brain. Probably could have thought of better English words. They also have vocabulary tests. You can measure how much you've learned. I just love them so much. And there are probably more features that I haven't even discovered yet. If you are familiar with this website and you know of any other website for another language that is like Spanish Dict, please let me know for future reference because they really figured it out. Like, it's Numero Dos. Apps. There are so many apps that I have an entire folder on my phone dedicated to language. The ones I've used are Duolingo, Link, Memrise, and Babbel. I actually just finished the entire Spanish course on Duolingo, and I am sorry to report I am not yet fluent. I know, surprise. But I do think apps are useful for learning in the beginning and just it's nice to have them as a part of your routine. I've also used Pimsleur, Lingodeer, and Pleco for Chinese, but my Chinese is taking a back seat for the moment. Numero 3. YouTube. I mean, you're here. All right. There is a whole language learning community. If you're interested in language in general, on the more technical side, I love Lang Focus. I've been watching his channel for years. Also, Crash Course just started releasing a series on linguistics that I'm obsessed with. There are also a bunch of YouTubers who know or are currently learning a bunch of languages, and some of my favorite people are Elise Speaks, Steve Kaufman, The Urban Eve, Lindy Bodes, Language Girl, so many. If I think of more, I will put them in the description box. And for like educational Spanish specifically, I love Butterfly Spanish. She's a super good teacher. Easy Spanish is great, especially to help become accustomed to various Spanish accents. I love Juan Coronado. Why Not Spanish? Spanish Land. How many times do you think I said the word Spanish in this video? And obviously, if you're learning another language, I'm sure there are tons of YouTubers you'll love. I also just like watching regular old videos that happen to be in Spanish. Super Holly has quickly shot up to the top of my list of favorite YouTubers, and I'm super interested in educational content generally, so Un Mundo Inmenso scratches that itch. Viaje Fest is great because I love travel, and I love food, so I've been watching a ton of Jauja Cocina Mexicana and Cocinando con Amor. Numero 4. Listen to podcasts and music. I know I dragged Duolingo before, but they actually have a really great bilingual podcast where there is a native Spanish speaker telling a story, and then there is someone speaking in English in between, like explaining what's going on, just in case you missed something. I just checked. Currently, they only have a Spanish one, a French one, and an English one for Spanish speakers, but hopefully they'll add more languages in the future. Also, this next one was suggested to me by Patreon member extraordinaire Shannon Lola Lemon on Twitter, which is El Dolop, and I really liked it, except I think they speak a little too quickly for my current level. But if you're high, intermediate, or above, you will probably like it. As for music, there is literally so much, I don't even know where to begin. I've been listening nonstop to this playlist on Spotify called Chill Latino, which are the vibes I like, but I'm sure no matter the music genre or language you're into, you can find a playlist on Spotify, or YouTube for that matter. I will tell you a song that I cannot stop listening to, which is Te Quiero Olvidar by Salt Cathedral. It's perfect. It's amazing. I love it. Sometimes I'll just listen to it. Other times I will sit at my computer. I'll open a page of lyrics. And actually, one thing Google is super good for is if you search the lyrics to a song in Spanish, they'll give you an option at the bottom to click translate, and it will line by line give you the translations. So you can sing along and learn some new words or phrases in the process. When I learned the phrase vale la pena, which means it's worth it, and then that phrase happened to be in the song, and I understood it, I felt so accomplished. Even going back and listening to songs that I liked back in the day, like Christina Aguilera's Spanish album from the year 2000, and a lot of old Shakira that I've loved for almost 20 years. I can go back to those songs and actually understand what I've been singing along to this whole time. Because back then, I would learn the words from reading the lyrics and singing along, but it would be from CD booklets. And, you know, Spanish Dict or Google Translate didn't exist yet. So I just kind of learned the words without always knowing what they meant. It's kind of amazing going back and listening to all those old songs, and I'm singing the words that I've always known. But this time, I actually understand what I'm singing. It's wild. Numero 5. Cinco. Talk to yourself. This one's kind of weird, I know. But if you don't have someone to practice with you all the time, practice with yourself. You can describe what you're doing in the moment, talk about what you want to eat today. And if you don't know a word or a phrase for something that you say often, you can just look it up. If I catch myself talking to myself in English, I try to like backtrack and then say the same thing in Spanish. And at this point, I can understand way more than I can speak, which honestly gets frustrating sometimes, not being able to produce the words that I know. But I think self-talk is kind of like a good exercise in helping improve my speaking skills. Now, the next one is related to this one, but it might be a little harder to find. So I'm using it as a buffer between like all of the free stuff I just mentioned and all of the purchasable stuff I'm going to mention next. Numero 6. Find a language exchange partner. Easier said than done. I happen to find someone on this app called Lingby, which connects you to native speakers with audio, so you can practice speaking your target language with someone there to correct you in real time. Which actually brings me to a side note. Don't rely on native speakers to correct you in real life, because most likely they won't. Like, how often has a non-native speaker made a mistake in your language and you corrected them? Probably never, because in most situations, it's considered rude or inconsiderate or unnecessary. Like, if someone stops you to ask for directions, they're just trying to get their point across and you're just trying to give them the information that they need. Basically, the main goal is to communicate effectively, not have a grammar lesson. In an environment where you want to be corrected, it's obviously not rude, so it's a much better learning experience. So I ended up clicking with one of the girls that I met on there, and we were both comfortable enough to take our conversation online. And I think the best part is that her English level is about the same as my Spanish level. So it's really an equal exchange. Last week we wrote little mini essays and then corrected them for each other. And it's just really helpful to have someone there show you your mistakes when otherwise you might not have noticed them. Not so free resources. Numero 7. Netflix, or Hulu, or HBO Max, or Disney Plus, whatever, streaming services. Basically just find shows in your target language and watch them. Literally, that's it. But depending on your level in the language, I think like the use of subtitles changes. Like if you're a beginner and you just kind of want that input, but you don't really understand a lot yet, it might be helpful to have subtitles in your native language. Currently, I'm watching La Casa de las Flores on Netflix with Spanish subtitles, and I kind of just watch it passively. I mean, I pay attention to it, but I'm not like taking notes or anything. Occasionally, I will like whip out my phone and look up a word that I don't understand, but for the most part, I really just kind of try to watch and like fill in the blanks like with context clues. I've also watched some Disney movies in Spanish, like Aladdin and The Little Mermaid. Like it's a Spanish dub with a Spanish sub, but it does get a little confusing sometimes because the subtitles never match with the dub. Like it throws you off sometimes. But since I already know the story, I already have the context. And so a lot of the times I can guess what certain words mean without having to look it up. Speaking of taking notes though, Numero 8. Get a notebook. So this one could be free if you use Google Docs or something, but I feel like there is something to like the pen to paper method. I don't know. I bought these super cute highlighters because I'm extra, but also for organizational purposes. I also write a journal entry in Spanish every now and then so that in the future I can go back and correct my mistakes from the past. Not my life mistakes, unfortunately, just my grammar and syntax. I also use this notebook to mine vocabulary. I'm so corny, I'm sorry. That was me mining, by the way. Mining vocabulary. I can stop. For example, here's a bonus. I changed the language in a game that I play on my phone, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, to Spanish. So if you happen to like that game, that's also something you can do. Basically, I will just sit there, play my game, and then if I encounter a word I don't know, I'll look it up on Spanish Dict, write it in the notebook, voila. Vocabulary mined. Another place I mine vocabulary from, Numero 9. Libros. Books. I started reading The Hunger Games in Spanish, and when I do, let me make it clear, it is slow because I stop whenever I see a new word or a phrase that I don't recognize, and I write it in my notebook. Oh my gosh, this goes to this thing, right? Wow. How many times can I make the I need to learn English joke? I got a Spanish workbook. I forgot to mention this. Basically, I'm weird and I don't want to write in it because I feel like I don't want to ruin it, even though that's the purpose of a workbook, to work in it. But I will go through the activities and write the answers in my notebook. I also just bought El Sutil Arte de que te importe un carajo. Carajo is a curse word, but do I need to like bleep it? It's so funny because that word means nothing to me. I mean, I know what it means, but like, if I said the F word in English, like I would feel a certain way about it. You know, like there's a strength to it. That I don't feel that strength with carajo yet. So hopefully soon I'll feel it. But it's super good so far. I literally am not even finished with the first chapter yet. But this one I haven't stopped to write in my notebook. Mostly I have Spanish Dict open while I'm reading it. And then I will, if I don't understand something, I'll look it up real fast. And then I'll just keep reading. So then when I encounter that word again, hopefully I'll remember what it means. I don't know which method is better, to be honest. You know, taking notes with Los Juegos del Hambre and not taking notes with the other one. So I'm kind of just experimenting with both. And that actually brings me to my final point. Everyone learns differently, which I know it's a frustrating thing to hear because it's open-ended. You kind of just have to try things and see what works best for you. But the best part is learning a language is something you have full control over. You can study as much as you want at your own pace. No one has the power to stop you from reaching your goals. And it's something that can't be taken away from you. For me, I don't like to focus on any specific goals. I just try to focus on the process itself. Am I reading a little every day? Am I putting in the work? And I think that's what makes goals feel so unattainable sometimes, because we tend to think of all of the work that has to go into it all at once. Obviously, we're not going to do all of that work at once when it's really just a bunch of small, way less scary decisions. Like deciding to sit down and do a 10-minute grammar lesson is way less scary than imagining learning the entire language. And so, without really realizing it, by creating these habits and getting into routine, we will eventually reach these goals. Wheezy Waiter said it best.
Practice doesn't always feel like progress, even though it is.
Practice doesn't always feel like progress.
You just said that.
I know. I'm just emphasizing. But it doesn't. You can't always see the improvements that you're making while they're happening. Like, I have this app that takes $10 from my checking account every week and then puts it in a savings account, and it also like rounds up purchases, like the cents that's left over in a purchase. And so I don't really see these things happening, but after a few months, when I remember to go check this savings account, I actually have a bunch of money in it that I completely forgot that I had and that I didn't even notice was missing. And it's not missing because I have it. It's just, you know what I mean? But it's the same thing. In a few months, when I look back at my journal or even my proficiency test video, I know I'll be able to look back on those things and then see my progress. But it takes time. There is no shortcut. As much as I've always wanted there to be, you just have to put in the work. I hope you found literally any of this video helpful. Like I said, these are just some of the things I've learned and used in the process. So take what you like, leave what you don't, and if there's anything that I forgot to mention, or if you have any questions whatsoever, leave them in the comments below, and I will try my best to answer them. Also, if you have any insight from your own language learning journey, let me know. We can help each other out. Thank you so much to all of my patrons, especially Shannon Lemon, Melissa Briseño, Harley Blaine, David Williams III, and Cat Hart. If you'd like to check out my Patreon and help support this channel, the link is always below. I'm Nicole Foti, you're watching Soundly Awake, y nos vemos en el próximo video. Bye.